Alright guys, so I did dualies on the Foreman. Obviously I've done this a bunch of times. Links in the description from all my other videos. The first time I did it was a 300 with some crushed outlaws and some vampire EDLs. This is a much better setup because it's lighter and it's going to have more traction and it's actually going to have some flotation, so I should be able to cross ponds and stuff. So we'll be testing that out this weekend. Pretty happy with how it came out. I'll give you the details of how I do it. Feel free to tell me better ways to do it, but I've done this like 4 times now. It's one of the first people to do it, and a lot of people have used my method and they're very happy with it. So this is a good method as long as you torque everything appropriately. This came out really nice. It's actually the best I've done it. I don't have a single stripped out lug, and there's like 100 lug nuts on this thing. I'm not exaggerating. There's 100 lug nuts probably, maybe, or something. So yeah, we'll see how it does. I don't think I'm gonna lose a tire, but I do think I'm gonna break a tie rod or bend a tie rod. And this is the ultimate test for the new axles I'm playing with. It actually looks pretty cool because this thing has a 3-inch stretch, so hopefully it won't wheelie back too much in the thick stuff, and it'll actually be able to put down some power. All 27 horsepower. Real quick guys, if you like this stuff, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It helps me get more money to make you guys more stupid videos like this. Also, if you need some vessel lights or vessel ready to relocate or Tarachi tires, promo codes are on the screen in front of you to save you some money. 32 Aztecs on the inside and the 30 Aztecs on the outside. And I can't do the 33s because they're the wrong lug pattern. I'd have to do an adapter and then it'd be even wider. So we're going to do 32s and 30s. That's plenty of tire, trust me. I've done this before. I was one of the first people to ever do this on a quad with my 300 that floated. And then I did my Rubicon and so on. What you need to make this work is you need these screw-on stud spacers. This is going to be kind of a dually adapter, and you also need these cone-shaped washers. So you put the cone-shaped washer on the stud, screw this on behind it, good to go. Now that would be a pretty sweet job, except there's a lot more space required. So you end up having to install these. So you install your wheel, you install this as a lug nut, and then you have to put some spacers on top of this. I've got a lot of spacers laying around. Hopefully we can make it work. If not, I'll have to order some spacers. This wouldn't be a bad job, except that I previously cut my wheel studs in order to run a 3/4 inch adapter to keep it skinny. So because my wheel studs are cut, I had to replace all my wheel studs with new studs. That way you get enough threads when you screw this guy on, because there's going to be a wheel sitting on there, then there's going to be a tapered washer. You want to make sure you still get a good amount of threads, otherwise your wheels are going to fly off. So I put some new studs on. Fun, fun, fun. The usual crap. But yeah, in order to do this, I've got to swap the tires around all 3 of these machines and then put some different tires on this one. And I think that's it. Number 2, I rode with Canadian ATV Life, and they had some 6x6s on dualies, and they did really well, but we wanted to see what would happen if you did a dually with like a really aggressive mud tire like an Aztec. He has Zillas, which are a little less aggressive. So this definitely be interesting. And it'll definitely put our new Tarachi front axles to the absolute test. Of course, nothing is ever easy. The way these things came, they interfered with the wheel. The big hex hit there. There is a different style of these spacers that don't have a hex. They just have 2 flats. I like these because you can put an impact on them, but I'll put both styles in the description in case that helps you. Yes, the links probably won't work a year from now. Do this thing called Google. I'm tired of Googling things for you guys. You can find it yourself. But yeah, ideally you'd use some steel wheels. It'd be a lot easier here, or some wheels with some bigger holes. But this is the wheels I got, and I don't feel like dismounting the tires. So went on the old redneck lathe and we turned it down. You can see the difference there. Chucked it up in there with some paper towels, protect the threads, and then went over to the old bench grinder and yeah, just tortured my stone right there. So now I can screw it on, and I've got to do this to all 16 of them, which is a royal pain in the ass. So either use steel wheels or buy the other style spacers or do this crap. And again, just to reiterate, because everyone will be confused, the way you assemble this is you put the wheel on like normal, then you insert one of these cone washers like that, and then you screw your wheel spacer onto the stud. That's how it looks tightened down. So this is acting like your lug nut, and then it gives you a stud that you can stack some spacers on and adapt to your dually. All right, so there's how it looks with all the stud adapters on. So you can drive the machine around just like that. They don't stick out past the wheel. And then when you get to your location, you can thread on your other adapters, your spacers, and put the wheel on. So there's a lot of work, get all those grinded down to fit in the wheels, but they're on there good. They're torqued nicely. And I like those hex ones because then you can torque them with a 1-inch drill bit, or a 1-inch socket. So that's pretty nice. Now we're gonna put on an adapter. That'll take it to 137 millimeter, and then a couple spacers, then we can bolt on our other wheel. Now ideally, if you were doing this, you would have an IRS wheel on this side and a solid rear axle wheel on this side. I don't have any solid rear axle wheels on Aztecs. I only have some small wheels, so we got to stack a lot of spacers because we're using all IRS wheels, so we got to put the hub way out here. Luckily, this dude has a lot of spacers. All right, so that's a 32 and that's a 30. Here's how you bolt it up. That's a 1-inch adapter, 1.5-inch spacer, 1.5-inch spacer, 1.5-inch spacer, and 1-inch spacer. Ideally, with these particular wheels, I would have another 1.5-inch spacer instead of this one. I really need to be 1/2 inch wider, but I let the air out of this tire. I'm gonna bolt it up and then air it back up and it'll work. All right, it's all bolted up. One problem is that it won't fit in the back of the truck anymore. And I can't steer very far, but it is hilarious. All right, I got one of the rears done. It looks different in the front because it is. So I have IRS wheels, and what I did was I put the inside tire pretty close to the muffler. So there's no spacers behind it. It's bolted right to the hub. That makes it a little bit stronger and also helps with the crazy width. And then I stacked on an additional 1-inch spacer over here in order to get a little bit of gap between the tires. Up front, I had to stick them real close to each other just to get better steering. In the rear, it doesn't matter. Having a gap will let the mud evacuate better, and it'll look cool. And I ended up having an extra spacer than I thought I wouldn't have. So yeah, let me walk you through what's going on here. 2.5-inch stud spacer, 2.5-inch solid spacer, 4x110, 4x110 1-inch spacer, 4x110 1-inch spacer, 4x137 to 4x110 adapter, 4x137 spacer 1-inch, 4x137 spacer 1-inch. This is not the best way to do it. Obviously, you want to have as few spacers as possible and have some bigger ones. This is just what I had laying around. A lot of these are junk spacers I take off of people's machines because most of these Amazon spacers are terrible. You set your PSI in this tire before you bolt the wheel on, because otherwise you won't be able to get to the straighter valve. Time to bolt her on up. The worst part of this job by far is grinding these things down. And just to reiterate, you can make this easier on yourself by using a steel wheel on the inside and using a 2+5 offset wheel on the outside. You wouldn't need nearly as many spacers. I'm using 4+3 wheels on the inside, 5+2 on the outside. About the wrongest way you could do this, but I had everything here.